The Illini win 98-58 on Saturday, a 40-point victory that maybe didn't quite feel like a 40-point victory, but, kind of also did. Lots of thoughts and concerns. But first, my name is Sonny Verma. You're watching Orange and Blue News. You're watching Talk Illini, sponsored also by On3 Network. My name is Sonny Verma. That over there is my co-host over there, Carson Bounds. Also of On3, make sure you check out Orange and Blue News. Carson and Doug do a fantastic job of creating Illini-based content each and every day. Me, myself, I'm right here on Talk Illini, producing content whenever we can. And today, Carson, we get to talk about this victory. Normally, I feel like the Illini fan base and myself feel a little bit better about a 40-point victory, but not that I don't feel great, but there's certainly some areas of concern. Today kind of seemed like a scrimmage out there more than anything else. A bunch of guys out there just trying to get acclimated to one another, each strengths, skills, where each person likes it on the basketball court. And, for some players, for the very first time, they're kind of learning what it's like to play college basketball here in America, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I'm curious on your thoughts. You were at the game, obviously covering the game for Orange and Blue News. Give me your synopsis of what you saw of this game today.
Yeah, I think part of your analysis is spot on. There were just times during this game where play structure just kind of broke down, and it was kind of reminded me of like an AAU game where there's just kind of guys out there scoring for themselves. And, you know, Illinois benefited from having basically a mismatch at every position. So guys were
Yeah.
able to go kind of get their own, but ball movement wasn't quite as there as it has been in past games. There were times where certain guys kind of just acted as like a ball stopper. There'd be one or two passes, they get the ball, they go score. And it wasn't necessarily an issue for him, but it's something that might not be sustainable versus a higher level of competition. And I think that was one of the big concerns, along with the turnovers. A lot of that I think you contribute to, as you said, guys getting acclimated to the offense and playing in the new system. But like a Mahalo Petravich, being his like first real minutes outside of a few spot minutes last game, it's tough. And Brad mentioned in the post game that getting guys like that acclimated to having to play off ball as well as on ball is a new process that they have to learn through.
Yeah, I'm sure they wish they had the rotation. I'm sure Brad Underwood wishes, now that they're 4-1, 5-6 games into the year, you want to know what your rotation is going to look like. But because of Illinois' situation has been so, injury prone, you haven't had starters. I'm not even talking about during the regular season. This team played together for the first time together just this past Sunday. As of this recording, that was 6 days ago. This full team practiced together for the very first time. And in between that, you've been dealing with different players getting hurt here and there. And so, today you caught a glimpse of, even the guys that you expect to be a big part of this team, like Tomislav Ivicic, still struggle. And again, it's not an ideal scenario for Brad because you have UConn coming up, of course, on Black Friday. But, it's just one of those where you had no choice. In some ways, you're lucky. You have today's game and you have Monday's game coming up where you can give Brandon Lee some minutes. Try to get him used to playing what college basketball is going to be like. Get Mahalo Petravich up to speed to, hopefully get him comfortable enough to be in the rotation against UConn on Friday. But it's just one of those, the teams looked impressive. I don't think they haven't looked impressive in any game today or this season so far, even against Alabama. You lose against Alabama and you wish you won that game. But at the same time, there's certain circumstances which I think that in itself, the performance wasn't anything to be ashamed of. Let's put it that way. But just not having a set roster, a set rotation right now, you can see how there still might be some concerns about who's going to get minutes. And hopefully these next two games, well, at least today and Monday, Brad's going to have a better idea. Did he say anything about that in the post-game press conference?
He didn't say too much about the rotation other than, again, he just wants to see more guys continue to get reps. I know preseason, the big conversation was going to be Keaton Wagler or Mahalo Petravich whenever Petravich came back. I don't think there's much of a conversation now. Keaton is the starter, and that's not going to change. I would be shocked. So now the question becomes, is Mahalo actually going to be your sixth man? Does he start in place of somebody else, and who would that be? But before he's in the conversation to be a starter, he has to find a rhythm. and be able to, dominate both on and off ball movements on offense. And he also has to be effective on defense, which I don't know. We saw today he was kind of chasing some guys, had to recover a lot. He really wasn't particularly inefficient, but he also wasn't lighting the world on fire either. Not enough to justify, getting major minutes cut out of, say, Keaton Wagler's time that's spent on the court.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Talk a Line, this is the first time we're doing a live episode. So if you are watching, please leave a question in the comment section. And Carson and I, at the end, we will get to it. Let's talk about Keaton Wagler. In my opinion, he was the best player on the court today. In let me put that up. 28 minutes, he scored 19 points, had 4 rebounds and 3 assists, 2 blocks. Again, like how Bill Self let this kid get out of Kansas and into Brad Underwood's hands, I don't know, but I'm going to absolutely be grateful. It's just nice to have almost game in and game out one of your freshmen be the best player on your basketball team. And it's one thing if your team is struggling. This team isn't. This is a very good basketball team, loaded with star players, potential all Big Ten guys. And the fact that 2 of your freshmen are 2 of those key players, it just gives you an embarrassment of riches if you're Brad Underwood. But tell me what you saw from Keaton today.
Yeah, the thing I love about his offensive game is while he is able to create for himself, he doesn't force things. He will attack when an opportunity presents itself, when he gets the ball in the post or he gets a rebound and there's opportunity to just drive in and get a putback. He's not forcing things. He's not trying to just, create aimlessly, take 20 dribbles and, hit a step back. He's not that kind of player. He's a guy, he takes what comes to him and he goes with the flow of the game. And while the last few games has taken more shots, he's been very efficient. Tonight was 7 of 10 shooting, 70% from the field. You'll take that any day of the week. But he's been efficient as well as he's just made good decisions. And that's, I think, part of the reason Brad trusts him so much is, of the guys that turned the ball over today, he had 1 turnover. I think that matches a season high, or it's one off of a season high. He doesn't turn the ball over and he plays 25, 30 minutes a game as a freshman. That's something you can't replicate. It's just he's the anchor of the offense, and he's kind of like a glue guy when he's not the leader as well, which what makes him so unique.
Exactly. Another guy who's considered a leader on this team, Andrej Stojakovic, had a really strong second half in particular. Today, he finished in 24 minutes. He had 20 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks. But at times, Brad Underwood got kind of aggravated with him during the game. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, yeah. Brad, one of the perks of the game today with LIU is they don't sell like student section tickets for break games, so it was just regular fans sitting down there, so it's much quieter than it usually was. Meaning we could hear everything that's being said from the bench. And Brad was having a great day with some of the audio clips that we could get. He yelled at a lot of guys about defensive hustle, defensive effort, and Andre was no exception. At one point, he had sent David to the bench and yelled, just defend at him. And similar deal with Andre. He pulled Andre really early on, simply for, not having intensity on the defense, giving up a few drives to the basket off screens. And essentially the deal was you have to defend and you have to at least attempt to rebound if you want to stay in the game. And, Andre's second half got the message and did what he needed to do. But in a game like LIU, Brad also had the luxury of, pulling Andre and letting other guys get some run and not having to worry about the lead being in doubt.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's one of those situations where you just got off a very highly emotional game against Alabama, and then everybody knows you've got that UConn game coming up next Friday. Sometimes it is hard getting up for a game against Long Island, and it's nice for me that, and I think it's nice for the coaching staff that they know they have something that they need to improve on. They're not going to go home, sleep easy, saying, hey, we won by 40 points in a college basketball game. No, there was plenty. I feel like Brad was as animated today and had as many comments today as he's had in any game prior to here. And, tomorrow when the team gets together, there's going to be a lot of tape of them to work on things because, again, you can coast by against teams like Long Island. But UConn will blow you out of the building if you play the way that you did today. And so in a lot of ways, I do think this could be a learning moment, not just for a guy like Andrej Stojakovic, but you mentioned on multiple occasions, David Mirkovic was getting yelled at by Brad Underwood for he was taken out of the rotation very early in the game. I noted, and then at the end of the game, same thing. Brad Underwood was certainly letting him know his feelings, but it's nice that in a bye game like this, that it's not just something you rest on. I know that some of the fan base are somewhat frustrated, saying, why can't we come up with bigger challenges? It's because I think Brad Underwood knows and understands this algorithm when it comes to what the analytics will look like in March. You want to play the top of the top competition because whether you win or lose, it doesn't really matter all that much. And then you want to play the bottom level competition and you want to blow them out as by as many points as you can, because that's just how the numbers work. And so for today, they discussed it on the telecast. You have that quick turnaround. And so Brad was talking about the reason he did that on purpose is because he wants to simulate kind of what the schedule is going to look like in March. What's the schedule is going to look like, when March Madness takes into effect, how you have a quick turnaround like that. And overall, it's a game where despite winning by 40 points, I think there's just a lot that this team learned today that they can still work on in order to reach its ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of like finishing up the thought on Andre, an interesting thing I noted was he was plus 11 today, plus minus. All the other starters were plus 15, plus 25. David was plus 31. Andre was their leading scorer. He had 20 points, 10 to 15 shooting, very efficient, and he could get whatever points he wants to get whenever he wants it. But like Brad mentioned in the post game, it's what are the little things he's doing that impact the other aspects of the game? Clearly he could score, but they're going to need more from him as we move forward, especially in these bigger games.
We've got a lot of new viewers watching. Again, if you're here for the first time, welcome to Talk Illini, a newer Illini show where Carson, myself, JR, we're going to produce content for you each and every day. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel as we continue, along with Orange and Blue News, to push out Illini content for you. Carson, I did want to discuss, this was, I feel like, the first long-form debut of a couple players. Let's start with Mahalo Petravich. Ultimately, in 9 minutes, he had 4 points, 2 of 5 from the field, 0 for 1 from three-point land, 0 for 1 from free throws, 1 rebound, 0 assists, 1 turnover, and 1 steal. What were your thoughts of Mahalo up close?
It was interesting because if you look at just strictly box score, play-by-play numbers, he's relatively efficient. 9 minutes played, plus 12, plus minus. So he was, the team was doing well with him on the floor, but also there are times of the game where you're watching and it's like, oh, he's calling for the ball. They give him the ball, and then he dribbles inside and falls. And, there's a loose ball situation. They're diving for it. And then he recovers, throws a pass, gets a hockey assist. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but, you find Keaton Wagler for an open three via a dump off pass to Colin Boswell. Like, it's interesting because, like, anybody watching the game knows it's probably not a great basketball play, but it is good basketball instincts to recover once you make mistakes. So he's a guy, he made a lot of mistakes today, some that didn't even show up on the stat sheet, but also he recovered pretty well from them. And the team didn't seem to be hindered by that too much. So he's a guy, I think, just as more reps come and some of the rust gets shaken off, as he regains some of his explosiveness, as his hamstring gets better, I think we're going to see better and better results from him. And Brad mentioned in the post game, what is he doing when he's not on the ball? His off ball movement. He had one great cut inside today that got him an open layup off of a pass from, I believe it was Kylan. And he can continue to work on that. If he's a guy that could become an elite cutter when he's not on the ball, it's just another aspect that make this offense so dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like I'm grading him kind of on a curve just because, he did play a couple minutes, very solid minutes against Alabama on Wednesday night. Today was really his first time where Brad Underwood handed him the basketball and he's like, go run this basketball team. And to me, there were certainly moments, like you said, where maybe he underestimated the type of athlete that exists on this side of the pond compared to what he's used to in Europe. But also, if it's your first game, I'm not going to judge you too harshly on certain plays like that in general. From what I really did like. I think that he could be our best pure point guard when it comes to like a guy who has the ball in his hands and is looking to pass first. I don't know if Kylan or Keaton are necessarily those type of players. So if anything today, the box score looks okay. But as you mentioned, there was a couple opportunities where assists just didn't happen, despite Mahalo making the right pass at the time. I feel pretty good about this guard rotation. I fully expect him to have another 15, 20, 25 minutes maybe on Monday against, who do we play? Rio Grande, I believe it is. Because I think you're going to need, the ultimate goal is to have Mahalo Petravich a part of your rotation. And in particular, we'll talk about this right after, with Tommy still looking like he's recovering a little bit, you're going to need all the weapons that you can get. And I think Mahalo, to me, showed that he's different enough of a weapon that he's someone that Brad Underwood eventually is going to be able to utilize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about Tommy. Okay game. We're talking about in 21 minutes, he scored 9 points, 4 rebounds, had 2 turnovers, did have 1 block. He looked rusty out there for me. I mean, not as bad to me as he looked against Alabama, but obviously he's still recovering from his injuries, from his tonsillitis. He's had a lot of issues coming into this season. And to me, did he look right to you?
He looked better than he did against Alabama, like you said. Brad mentioned in the post game after Bama that when he injured his knee, he basically was just on the couch for 2 weeks. With knee injuries, you don't want to risk it, so you just can't do much. And he said he basically did practice for a day before Alabama. It's been 3, 4 days now, so he's still getting back into the swing of things. And you have to think, guys at his size, 7-footers, if you don't move for 2 weeks, you're going to be stiff. And he wasn't necessarily the most fluid athlete coming into the year either. So, it's tough. It takes a little bit of time to reacclimate. I do think he'll be fine. He's a veteran on the team, and I trust that he'll get himself right. But it's going to beg the question: how long is it going to take? Is it going to be another week? Is it going to be 2 or 3 weeks? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when the original prognoses were coming out about his injury, we heard 2 to 4 weeks. It could be 3 to 6 weeks, and the fact is, he's come back a lot sooner than that. And maybe that did get a lot of us, the fan base wise, excited. But now we're kind of seeing the reality of it. That just because he's back early doesn't mean he's 100%, right away. I did also want to mention, though, his brother, who I also thought had a really disappointing game against Alabama. To me, he looked great today. He looked like what Zvonimir typically looks like on his good games. In 16 minutes, he had 8 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 blocks and 3 steals. If Zvonimir plays like this, then all of a sudden the urgency to have Tommy back at 100% becomes less. What did you see from Zvonimir today?
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of his brother in a little bit, but he's also a little more mobile than Tommy, right? He's more of a vertical athlete. That's where the blocks come from. It's really impressive. I think he probably fits the scheme Illinois wants to run even a little bit better than Tommy does because he's able to run the floor. And it's interesting to see, how will they use him? I know he's still also dealing with, a little bit of knee soreness. And mentioned he had swelling a week ago. I think he's mostly I think he's 90% there, but I don't think we've seen 100% of him yet either. And him coming into Illinois, the whole battle with him wasn't, can you get him to play to his ceiling? It was, can you just raise the floor for a guy like that? If you get Zvonimir Ivisic at 60% or better all the time, every time you play a game, he's going to be a really dangerous guy. He's going to be a guy that's going to be hard to keep on the bench.
Exactly right. I'm trying to think. Did anything else stick out to you about today's basketball game?
Um, I noticed Jake Davis's minutes have been going down a little bit. He played 24 today. I think as we've mentioned, talking about thinning out the rotation. I think Jake is a guy. He'll provide valuable spot minutes, but I think it's going to go back to what he was doing last year, where maybe he's playing 15 or 20 minutes, but the impact isn't necessarily felt. But I don't want to discredit the kid. He's still an efficient player. 1 for 4 today shooting. He had 3 points, but he was still plus 24 in the box score. So he's a guy. He fills a valuable role. He keeps the ball moving and he plays good defense, which is huge. But I think as guys continue to get healthier and healthier, he's going to be a guy that sees less and less opportunity share as the year goes on.
Yeah, I always say that about Jake Davis. To me, he plays like a coach's kid, in the sense where every time you just watch him during a play, he's in the right spot doing the right thing. He's not flashy. He's not exactly an athlete. But usually the plus minuses tend to always be on the positive side when he's on the court. Before I wrap things up, Carson, what did those orange jerseys look like in person?
Oh man, they were awesome. I like that the shading is right. They kind of match the school logo. We've seen other schools when they do like these colorways. They don't even match their own school colors when they do these alternate jerseys. The Illinois ones match. I love that. The outlining on the letters looks great. I posted one image on my Twitter. I got a few more videos I might release later on, but dude, they look awesome up close and personal.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's Talk Illini, at least for now. We're going to have double coverage for you. JR is going to be covering the Illinois versus Maryland game. Carson, you got a prediction for that one?
I think I said in my article that we wrote with Doug, I want to say I predicted Illinois 28, Wisconsin like 13. I think it'll be a game where we win. We don't win with a very, sexy result. We win with an ugly game where Illinois is clearly just the better team.
Yeah, I think I had 26-6 or 27-6 or something like that. I'm continuing to hope that Aaron Henry can have that defense performing. Uncle Phil's cow says Illinois 35, Wisconsin 6. I think if Illinois can get to 14, the game is over. I just don't think this Wisconsin team can score. But again, JR, we'll have coverage for you right here on Talk Illini. Again, if you're tuning in for the first time, please hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're going to continue doing this all season long. Until next time, ILL.
I.